We will now call the Town of Hilton Head Island Design Board meeting for Tuesday, October 12th, 2021 at 10 a.m. to order.
Excuse me, Kathy.
Yes.
I still think I'm getting a lot of feedback.
I got it too.
Teresa, can you make sure that Annette's computer is muted?
Yes, Chris, I did what I could on our end.
Okay. Annette, do you have an opportunity to mute your phone until you speak?
So I had my phone muted up until like 5 seconds ago. I just opened up back to the *6.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Teresa, are we in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act?
Yes, ma'am, we are.
Thank you. Teresa, would you please call roll?
Certainly. Ms. Lippert?
I'm here.
Thank you. Mr. McAllister?
Here.
Mr. Karstens?
Here.
Mr. Bassett?
Here.
Ms. Foss?
Here.
I will note that Mr. Brown is excused and Mr. Molesky is expected.
Thank you. Does staff have any changes to the agenda?
No, ma'am, not at this time.
Perfect. May I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes from last meeting of September 28th? If not, can I get a motion to approve the minutes of September 28, 2021?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting of September 28, 2021 as submitted.
Thank you, Judd. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Motion passes. Do we have an appearance by citizens, Teresa?
Madam Chair, at this time, we do not have any requests for citizens to comment by phone, but I will note that public comments concerning agenda items were submitted electronically via the Open Town Hall portal. Those comments were provided to the board for review and made part of the official record. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Did everyone on the board see those comments? Okay. Do we have any unfinished business? All right, new business. 15 Wimbledon, DRB 002104-2021. Chris.
The applicant is proposing to redevelop the 8.4-acre site of the Port Royal Racket Club. The proposed buildings will consist of 3 4-story and 4 3-story structures containing a mix of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units. 166 units total, counting the lockout units. The proposed buildings do not exceed the LMO height limits of 70 foot. The development will be constructed in 2 separate phases. The first phase will include the clubhouse, resort pool and spa, pool restroom facilities, maintenance and a laundry facility, and 3 residential structures and entry drive. Also, as part of the first phase of the development, the entire Folly Field Road buffer plantings will be installed and irrigated. The second phase will include 4 residential structures and the balance of the site amenities. Access to the site will be via 2 entrances on Folly Field Road per an earlier agreement to rezone the site. There will also be pedestrian connectivity to Wimbledon Drive and Folly Field Road. Most of the parking will be underneath the buildings. Staff recommends final approval with the following conditions. 1, revise the lighting plan to be compliant with the LMO requirements and submit for approval by staff. 2, provide an installation detail or plan for the tree and well lights that will not impact existing tree roots and submit for approval by staff. The site is shown in front of you outlined in red. Running diagonally across the screen is Folly Field Road here. Island Club is here across Folly Field from the site. Islanders Beach Club sits just to the north on the opposite side. There's Lions here and Fiddler's Cove here. So here's sort of an aerial of the site. So looking at some of the surrounding architecture. Along the top, you can see pictures of Ocean Palms Villas, which is directly behind the site on Wimbledon Drive. You can see some of the examples of single family on Folly Field at the lower part of the page. Fiddler's Cove and Island Club, which is across the street again from the site. Lions down at the bottom is to the right of the site. And just some more pictures of Lions and the Barney Beach Club down the road. General pictures of development, recent development on the island. An existing site plan with images into the site analysis. So here's an overlay of the proposed development on the existing site. The specimen trees are noted. Color rendering. A study of what the streetscape will look like, and you can see above the planting that's proposed. And then just some indication of the trees that will be removed and the trees that are specimen and significant. The utility plans, grading and drainage plan, overall master site plan. Again, you can see the specimen tree and the significant trees that are to be preserved, and just general trees that are to be preserved. Details of these areas, the development, again, with the trees to be preserved. And there's the pedestrian connection through from Wimbledon to Folly. Site development details. Here you can see the fountain that was discussed that's been scaled down, and the sign out front. At this time, I think it's important to note and to remind the board that any sign larger than 40 square feet will need to come back to you all for review of that sign specifically. So, for instance, the fountain will be coming back if the letters are included in it, because it will be deemed a sign. So that whole system will come back to you for review in detail at a later date. Okay, so we're going to look at the planting plan now. Again, the specimen and significant trees have been identified, as well as existing trees to be preserved. This is the lighting plan. The lighting plan still does not meet LMO requirement and will need to be resubmitted. Staff's other concern is these well lights and tree lights and how the detail that shows the power supply to them. We want to make sure that we're preserving these trees, that we don't come in at the last and destroy the root systems under them. And we'll look at that detail later. Street lighting plan. Okay, now we're getting into the architecture of the buildings, and these were included obviously for reference for you all, and we can go back to them, but I'll run through them pretty quick because I think we're all familiar with them. So it basically goes the floor plan, which ends up being the parking, and then the roof plan, and then elevation of that specific building and a color rendering. And section through that building, and again, more construction sections, and then it goes on to the next building. Again, we continue to look at the individual buildings and their elevations. Sections through that building. This is the clubhouse. Site amenities. And we'll go through real quickly through the materials and site furnishings. These are materials that are proposed to be used on the site. I think you've seen them and commented on them before. This is the concept for the treehouse, light fixtures. This is the detail that staff is concerned about under the trees. This power supply being buried and an interruption to those feeder roots, which are in the first 10 to 12 inches. Half lights. And the string lights that are on the eating areas, between the buildings, the picnic areas. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Chris.
Madam Chair.
Teresa, I have a couple of administrative things before we get to the applicants. Is Mr. Molesky here?
Yes, Madam Chair, he is.
Yes, here.
Did he show up in time for the presentation?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, ma'am, he did.
Thank you. And then I forgot to state that Mr. Bassett will be recusing himself for this project. All right, do we have applicants available? And if so, please state your name.
Yes, you have Brett Callahan here, the owner's representative for the project. And then I have our landscape architect, John Garceau with Thomas and Hutton. And we have our architect, Michael Haynes, project architect.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. You guys have 10 minutes to make a presentation. Starting.
Okay. I just wanted to quickly run through. I appreciate everyone meeting this morning. As you know, we're here for final approval. I'm pretty confident that we made corrective measures to everything that everyone commented on last time. We reduced the tower on the clubhouse porte-cochere. We added horizontal banding to the clubhouse to match the other buildings on the width. We changed all the site amenity, railings, roofing, benches, everything to bronze colored. And I believe I sent you guys a current sample of the bronze. Hopefully everyone got to look at that. We called out areas of exterior surfaces. We reduced the fountain sizing. Added, I'll let John Garceau touch on the landscaping. I don't want to get confused. We enclosed the back of the barbecue. Pretty much no black items, adjusted the railings. I think that's really about it. I don't want to waste too much time. I'm sure everyone will have more questions as we go through. But I'm pretty we took away the string lights on the two barbecue areas on Follyfield Road. However, we did keep them on that back patio with the covered pavilion back there. I think that's about it. Flower recommended changing decorative screenings. Yeah, John, if you wanted to just touch base on your landscaping quick.
So to Brett's areas, we added magnolias by the pool area near that 15 Wilmington, structure that was close by. So we created more of an evergreen immediate vertical tree line there. We created some architectural relief with some palmettos and or Sylvester palms at the back of the clubhouse. We increased the plantings between buildings 7 and 6 around that barbecue area to kind of close that off. We changed all the site furnishings to a bronze finish. It's storm cloud, but it's more in matching with the architectural roof line color. All the other fixtures have been bronze or brass, antique brass. The called out the mulch areas for all the planting areas that are, the white voided areas. Let's see, specified a pool deck finish for the sun decking. Added waste receptacle locations, removed the Knox box location, and then specified a color for the, driftwood / light brown buff colored Trex decking. I think that captures everything other than the other little housekeeping items. Let's see here. Yes, and I think Brett touched on everything else.
Thank you, Mr. Garso.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
No, I think we're all set.
All right, we'll start with the board. Having any questions and discussion with Ms. Lippert?
Thank you. I appreciate how you've incorporated many of the comments, color revisions. I think the renderings really show how those have improved greatly, particularly the clubhouse. My comment is going to be minor, and I'm going to lean on the landscape architects. I still recommend 2 80-foot sections of pierced brick walls behind the 2 grill areas that are on the southern side of the site. It can be seen on L4.4, the 2 grill areas that I'm talking about. Other than that, I agree with staff comments. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to Mr. McAllister.
Thank you. Thank you to the applicants for addressing our comments and taking them into consideration. Just a couple things on the site plan, where the fountain is going to be. Have you guys thought about, I know that you're going to get schematics and all that stuff on the fountain, but have you guys sort of put a placeholder for where the equipment will be for that fountain? I know typically there, a lot of times it's like an on-grade vault that's underground and there might be a hatch. Just curious if you guys have thought about where that might go.
It would be directly behind the little 2.5-foot wall, buried in a green hatch, and then nestled in with landscaping, so that way there it wouldn't be seen by the public's eye.
Okay, that was what I wanted to make sure. So it sounds like that's addressed. Let's see. Overall, I think it looks great. Really like, I'll echo what Ms. Lippert said. I really like the changes to the clubhouse. I think the scale feels much better. As far as the pierced brick wall, as a landscape architect, I understand how much plant material you guys are putting in the buffer. You're going above and beyond. It's going to be a really nicely planted buffer. I think a pierced brick wall would be nice, but I also can see it getting a little bit lost. So I'm a little torn. I'd like to see it, but for me, it's not a sticking point. I guess I'll leave it at that. So I'm okay without it, but I think it would be a nice addition. But I also understand how nice this buffer is going to look when it's installed. So kind of where I'm at with it. Otherwise, I think it looks great. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McAllister, Mr. Milewski.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, I definitely like the fountain in the entry. I like the elevations there and how you try to break up the massing with the different colors there. I really don't have anything else to add at this time, so thanks for working with us.
Thank you. Mr. Karstens.
I also obviously appreciate what the applicants have done in regards to addressing comments, especially around with changes to the clubhouse area and seeking to meld the new project with the retention of the canopy and the existing material and the respect for the neighborhood now. Just a couple small things before I'll kind of go with Mr. McAllister on this. The addition of the wall, I feel like it's a lower element, and with all the buffer material, I don't believe it's necessary. I think with these additional plantings, if we were to introduce that wall, then it kind of brings up its own thing of anchoring that and how it ties in. So I think the amount of material associated with some of those grilling areas is satisfactory. On the planting plan, L4.1, my only comment for the planting plan would be that we've got these introduction of these live oaks on pretty much 3 corners. I'd like to see one on the fourth corner associated with that parking that was added in the recent stages. So just, I guess, east of the fountain and west of the parking in that end of that island, the addition of a live oak.
Okay.
That blue circle. So I think that will set up the four corners. You have your palms in the middle. I think you'll be all set with that. And then lighting wise, I understand, and thank you for taking out the string lights along the frontage. The wash lights at each of those two grilling areas, wash lights, understood, are typically sign lights that are ground mounted. The wash lights at those trellis features, are they intended to be mounted within the structure? Chris, I'm on L6.1. Yeah, so just that kind of is a typical down there with the four lights associated with each of those trellis features. Are those meant to be ground mounted, or are they going to be mounted within the structure and kind of like a downlight, or how's that?
That's correct. The latter, they'll be mounted in the structure as a downlight. So it'd be more just kind of ambiance downward, not too intense of a light.
Okay, so obviously you'll conceal the conduit, and that'll be kind of tucked in as much as possible.
That is correct, and we'll do probably 1 inch chases and fur it out, or do fur and boards to kind of conceal it. I don't want to see conduit, so you beat me to the punch on that one.
Sure. And then there are path lights shown going from the parking area on 6.1 out to the town pathway. But if we go, sorry, Chris. I'll let you bring up that plan if you can.
Do you
Chris.
see, I'm sorry, do you not see?
I see your
Hold
blue
on.
screen right now.
I'm sorry, my apologies. Let's try this.
There we go. All right, so in the bottom side of 6.1 here, those blue dots coming out from the parking area, that's the path lights. Chris, can you go to the next sheet? I'd like to see an addressing of that pathway on the southwest corner of the site with some path lighting, considering we're not trying to encourage folks to use the drive aisle to get in and out of the site and get to the pathway. And it'll just be a matching treatment for what's happening further to the west entry. And as far as whether or not it just needs to happen on property, or they could even be spaced out further if you're trying to not encourage too much traffic in, I understand. You could space them out a little bit more, but you pretty much just get to that lower southwest corner of that one building 4 and you'll be all set, I would believe.
Yeah, that's cool. We'll add that as well, and then we'll just stop it at the fire lane just from that standpoint, and just kind of suggest for those that are residents to come that way.
Okay. Again, it was trying to match up the treatment on the other end, get folks in and out without having to use the drive aisles as much as possible. With staff, obviously we'll see the signage again. I appreciate the scale associated with the entry fountain now. I believe that is it for me. Just the one indicator on the landscape plan, and then those couple lighting questions. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I mimic everyone else's comments on expressing our appreciation for all the changes you made. I really like the bronze roof with it. The entrance canopy looks a lot better with pulling it down and making it look like the other buildings. I want to make sure that Judd's comment is indicated for staff approval on plans, that you call out all the hidden conduits and show that on your plan somehow so that staff can approve that. And we don't just have a verbal stating it. All of Judd's comments were good. After listening to David and Judd, I think the brick pierced wall isn't that important because they do have good buffer back there. And I agree that the fountain, reducing that looks a lot better, but it'll be nice that we get it back for review if those letters are included. I wanted to make sure that we bring up some of the comments that came from the public. Most of them we cannot really comment on because it's out of our jurisdiction. But Chris, can you show us where the existing Osprey nest is on a site plan?
Yes, ma'am. Give me a minute.
No problem.
Okay, it's in this area right here, sort of central. Some of these, and I'll take help from the applicant if they're exactly sure. It's either this cluster of trees here or this cluster of trees here. Is that correct, John?
It's actually down, see where the racquetball or the handball courts are, closer to
Right
the football
here?
field? So it's right in that area right there, correct?
Right here. Okay, my bad.
No worries.
It should be noted that the pine has a dead leader, which is what they actually prefer. So it's, the pine is not, I guess my point is the pine's not healthy.
Okay. So we wouldn't be able to save it anyway. The nest.
Yes,
Correct.
that's correct.
Yeah, that tree was slated to come out because of its dead leader on it. The top is actually broke right off on one side.
And then I might be weird, but someone said there's a lot of action going on in a lagoon, a couple of alligators and some turtles. Where is that lagoon?
Probably be the existing lagoon to the left of the site.
Yeah, which is
It's
actually,
this lagoon,
yeah. Go on.
Okay.
it's this lagoon here.
And so
That's
that
off property.
won't be disturbed,
Correct.
other than scaring people with equipment or animals. Okay. And then
This is Kathy, to your point, this is a 20-foot, is that correct, John? 20-foot buffer right here?
That is correct. It's 20 foot undisturbed.
Okay, great. And then I saw a comment about parking, which we discussed last session, and you have met it per LMO standards, correct?
Yes, we have.
We've exceeded it.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone else on the board have, after reading the public comments, have anything to address for the public? No? Does anyone on the board need to discuss anything further with the project? If not, may I have a motion on the application?
I'll make a motion since I had a handful of comments. Motion to approve 15 Wimbledon for final new development, DRB number 002231-2021 with the following comments, board comments. The addition of path lights to sheet L 6.2 for the eastern pedestrian access to the site. The addition of a 3-inch live oak tree at the entry area on sheet L 4.1. And then the revision of the trellis detail 3.5 on sheet L 3.3 to include the wash light, downlight, wash light and associated conduit. And including all of staff's comments. All of these items can be for staff review.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Whew, we've got thirds and fourths. Thank you, Teresa. Can you call the roll?
Certainly. Ms. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Molesky,
Yes.
Mr. Karstens,
Yes.
Ms. Foss.
Yes.
Motion
passes.
carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will
Thank you,
now
ladies
move
and
on
gentlemen.
to Crave Station, an
Thank you.
alteration addition, DRB 002092-2021.
Thank you
Chris.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This project is the renovation of one of the existing buildings at 85 Pope Avenue into a restaurant. Renovations of the vacant building include site plan changes, landscaping, updated facade, and new parapet design. The parapet will use Meridian metal roof panels in the color of slate gray to match the bike shop that shares the lot. The exterior of the building will be clad in P2 Slippy V's, stained with Benjamin Moore river reflection. All exterior walls of the structure will be flood-proofed to 2 foot above the finished elevation of 9 to meet floodplain requirements. Madam Chair, at this time, staff requests that the additional information provided to the DRB in a separate email on October 11th be accepted for consideration.
Thank you, Chris. May I have a motion from the board to accept the additional information provided?
I'll make a motion to accept the supplemental information to this
Thank you,
project.
Mr. McAllister. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Teresa, please call the roll.
Certainly. Ms. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Molesky,
Yes.
Mr. Karstens,
Yes.
Mr. Bassett,
Yes.
Ms. Foss.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Staff appreciates that. So staff recommends approval with the condition that the bench that was submitted in that email be reconsidered and submitted to staff for review and approval. So the site is outlined in red. Running diagonally from top to bottom is Pope Avenue, and you can see Lagoon here. And this is an old aerial, so this is the park, the new Low Country Celebration Park, and this is a lighted intersection now with entrance into beach parking and the park. The new hotel site is back up here. You can see some of the construction happening here. And then on the bottom right is Coligny Plaza. So this is the building. Again, in the back, you can see the completed hotel. Another shot of that building looking towards Coligny Plaza. That is right here is the bike shop. This lower element is the bike shop. It's the other building on the site. Just a property line between the hotel site and this one. Sort of a site analysis. Here's the existing site as it is. So again, this is the building we're looking at. This is the building with the bike shop, and the hotel site is over here to the left. The demo plan, the interior demolition plan, floor plan, the existing exterior, and the proposed renovation of the exterior. Again, the electrical plan and colored elevations of what this is going to look like. Oh, I'm sorry. And this is the new information that was provided. So you can see they've gone from angled parking to perpendicular, which really has, and then you've got the drive aisle, which has that extra space they brought out to the landscaping between the bike path and the parking lot, and with these additional trees. Also, this large area, congregation area, there at the corner has been allowed or made room for. And you can see existing trees have been added to the landscape islands. Landscape plan. Proposed bike rack. Those are on the lagoon side of the building, right here. Proposed light fixtures and the proposed bench. Staff is just concerned that this is not going to look, it's going to look out of place in that area, and that the bench and the bench materials need to be reconsidered and submitted for approval. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Chris. Does anyone have questions for Chris? If not, is the applicant available?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you
Okay,
state your
sorry.
name again?
Jeff Kramer.
Thank you. You have 10 minutes to make a presentation.
Okay, good morning. I would like to thank the review board for their hard work and dedication to the town of Hilton Head. And I know y'all have to do a lot of extra work, which a lot of people aren't willing to do. So I respect all y'all's hard work and dedication. Okay, I would like to start by just, we're proposing to design a train themed food hall at 85 Pope Avenue in Caligny Resort District. There are two existing things on the lot, a 1-story, 716-foot, basically a bicycle shop, and a 1-story existing, used to be a gas station that's 2,600 square feet. We're proposing to transform the 2,260 square foot building, because that's what my client rented, into Crave Station, a food hall that serves various types of food. The restaurant will fill in the vacant building and blend into the current streetscape with updated landscaping, updated facade, a new parapet design, and signage. The parapet will use Meridian metal roof panels, the same color as slate gray, to match the bike shop that shares the lot. The exterior of the building will be clad in pressure treated slippy V, which I kind of borrowed from dock construction, which I think looks pretty neat. And it's also very durable and it's straight and long, and I think it makes a good finish. And it's going to be stained with Benjamin Moore River Reflections stain. That's what we're proposing. The finished product will be an family-friendly eating establishment for families visiting Caligny Resort. We will flood-proof the exterior of the walls up 2 feet to meet the 11-foot mean sea level town requirement. The restaurant will be called Crave Station Food Hall. The interior will have train-themed furnishing and ordering station and 25 seats. The restaurant will serve pizza, good food, and ice cream. There is currently no business in the building, and a restaurant at that location will bring foot traffic to the roundabout and for all the visitors to enjoy the area. We also really worked hard on the landscape plan with the staff to try to make it inviting and match with the existing environment. We'll be happy to look at more benches if we need to. We thought we were being green on the bench we picked. We thought it looked similar to the one across the street at the park, but we're open for suggestions. I think that'll do my presentation unless y'all have any questions.
Thank you. We'll go through the board, and if they have questions, hang tight and they'll ask. Mr. Bassett.
Yes. Well, first, I appreciate the updates to the landscape plan. I think that
turned it from a fairly plain site into one that is very much acceptable, especially the corner kind of congregation area to make it more pedestrian friendly. My only concern would be at the Lagoon Road side of it, kind of the south facing side, maybe breaking up that wall a little bit more with, I don't know if it's planters or something along that wall. I grew up in that area, so I've driven past it, thousands of times, and I know that side is very visible as you're exiting Lagoon Road. But not overly concerned about that. It's a short section, and I think there are some new curbing and a tree being added there that should help. I'd also encourage you to add trees that are upsized. I'll defer to the landscape architects on that, as far as what size is appropriate, but so that you can kind of see under the canopy. There's a lot of pedestrian and vehicular traffic there that can get a little dangerous, because people will, when they're waiting to take a right-hand turn there, they'll get impatient and try to, run through your parking lot. And having it where pedestrians and drivers can see each other will be important. I think it's very important to add some landscaping, but I guess just be aware of the scale of the landscaping to make sure visibility is enhanced. And that's all.
I was going to say the tree I helped that is what my comment back was going to be, that tree I helped that. As far as softening up some of the live oak.
Yeah, I think it will. I'm not overly concerned about that side, and I appreciate all the addition of landscaping and the updated materials. I think that makes it.
The large trees are a good idea, because you do have to watch the visibility on the corner. That makes total sense to me. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Karstens.
Yes, I certainly appreciate the addition of the site plan and landscape plan for review. I'm looking, obviously staff's got some very important comments when it comes to being able to address the architecture. And I think that's been worked through quite well. That obviously there's no additional signage going to be on site. It's all associated with the building as shown.
The only thing I wasn't sure about is they may want to put a menu, but I don't know if that's worked for the signed ordinance or not. Sometimes they put one outside, but they may have to put it inside the window. Something. I don't know how you do that, right? I think it was just too hard to figure out. That's all I'm proposing at this time, of course.
Okay. Yeah, I think to Mr. Bassett's comment about upsizing the oaks, considering there's only 3, and that one of the medians associated with the pedestrian circulation doesn't have any planting in it. You've already spec'd 3 inches. I would go up to a 4-inch caliper live oak for the 3 oaks, especially since the palms are the primary streetscape trees, especially on Pope Avenue. And so I'd recommend that as one of the comments for the oaks. I'm guessing with the bike rack area, it looks like you've got 14.5 feet. That should do well for being able to have plenty of pedestrian circulation and also having a bike area parking. I would just, for final, I guess this isn't. Chris, are we going to see this again or is this it for the review then?
That's a really good question and a really good point. This is an alteration addition, so it is only coming before you all one time. This is it.
Okay. I'd just make sure, I think before, like I said, I think 14.5 feet is good. I would just say with what I can tell where those bike racks are, I'd make sure that you're clear of the sidewalk well enough, because you don't want that bike parking to keep heading out into the sidewalk area. So if it has to be within the site by 5 feet or some additional footage, let's do that. I'd have the bike rack be a darker color. If it needs to be a dark gray to match the building, let's do that. And then I would also recommend that if you're looking to match the park bench, I would just match the park bench. I'd get the spec from the town and at least have that as the spec you start with. Yeah, because then, that sets up a consistent streetscape through that area, and it will encourage, I'm sure the neighbors have done some streetscape that hopefully too will match up with that. And I think the signage item and the bench, and I think those are all things. Any thoughts with the bike rental folks? I mean, obviously, they're kind of going to end up being this wedge between your new work and the work over by Plantation. There's going to be kind of this missing area. I don't know if has staff reached out, because I see in the plans you've submitted, there's kind of like this line that is struck down through. And knowing that the dumpster and everything is in the backside, in that access by the bike folks. Is there been any anticipation that even their frontage would be addressed in the near future?
We only rented the one building, and we're not in charge of the other building, so we've had a hard time trying to do stuff to the other building, other than we did match the roof color, and there is some existing landscaping on the other side of the drive that kind of, that looks similar to what we have on the side. So I think it'll be fine. I'm not, my client really had to go all out to try to do the landscaping. They don't even own the property. So we're just trying to work with what we have, please.
I understand it's tough with the lease with the way that
we haven't had any comments with him. I mean, other than his brother owns the property and blah, blah, blah.
Okay. As long as staff feels satisfied, I mean, as far as how the frontage is being addressed and primarily associated with the building that's being leased, I'm comfortable with that. I think there's going to ultimately be some work done on the other side, but obviously it's their responsibility, and it'll be kind of a pressure in general, just an implied pressure to kind of address things, or at least to get things looking good. So, but otherwise,
fans over there, something like that'd be nice. You never know, because certain things develop over time. They kind of grow if they're successful, like the Salty Dog did and stuff like that over the years. So it could definitely happen. Just hard to do it all at once financially.
Well, I certainly appreciate the refresh here. It reminds me of what was done over at Slapfish. So I think that these sites that have been vacant, especially these convenience store type places, have opportunities. So I appreciate the work that's being done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Molesky.
Yes, thank you. I don't know if you want to put up that picture of the site plan, just so I could reference questions there that maybe you could help talk me through. Okay, so let's see where I'll call it a peninsula there that's on Pope Avenue. The landscaping peninsula that sticks off there. That seemed correct. Yeah, thank you. That seems like a little bit of a pinch point in there. I know you have it called out as 24 feet. So maybe you guys could help the folks that would be backing out of these perpendicular spaces now. Does that allow adequate room for people backing out as other people are pulling in, and any queuing concerns and that kind of stuff, how that was thought through? Because it seems kind of tight, like it would be a pinch point.
Mr. Molesky, I think staff can answer that question. The 24-foot drive aisle is the minimum drive aisle or the standard drive aisle for perpendicular parking.
Okay, so we've met the minimum, and I guess therefore that makes it acceptable. But what about the and I don't know if this is a landscape architect question here, but just the peninsula that I'm pointing at, or that you shared there, that sticks out on both sides, is that you think that would help, or do you think that hurts as far as making it difficult for, from a site point of view, when a person's trying to back out and people are pulling in?
John, I would say is considering that entrance off of Pope Avenue is in essence a right in, right out. I think we're less concerned about folks trying to make a left in from that, obviously on that one.
Good point.
And then Lagoon Road is so close to the intersection and the stop movement. I think there is some space here to kind of negotiate. And I mean, as far as folks backing out of that space, it says 1 or 2. I think there's plenty of room, especially with the existing space over towards the bike area. I think there's some more room to negotiate. Like I said, Slapfish ended up being a one-way incident, and that was trickier. I think this single kind of way through, and if somebody comes into this, I guess from the Lagoon Road side, they can always make a 3-pointer to get back to one of those spaces 10 to 15 if one opens up. So there isn't necessarily circulation around the building, but I think there's enough room and all. And one more thing I forgot to mention, John, I'll let you get back to it. We're going to need wheel stops on the parking spaces up against the sidewalk. So spaces 1 through 9, you'll want to make sure you specify a wheel stop associated with those. Thanks, John.
No, thanks for sharing that. That was a good point, that coming in off of Pope Avenue is limited just to people heading, I don't know if that's, I guess, westbound, if the ocean's to the east and whatever. So that definitely helps. So thanks for pointing that out. And thanks, Chris, for the 24-inch minimum as far as that. Because I was referencing Slapfish because it seems kind of tight in one way as far as that goes. Because we won't get to see this again, I would just want to point out, and I don't know how to accomplish this, and again, I'll lean on others here, but I feel that this site definitely needs to be an extremely pedestrian-friendly type of site, just because of the direction of this whole Coligny area, and who knows what the future holds for Coligny in general, but I think anything that can be done to place emphasis on it being a pedestrian-friendly site, and maybe that means not minimums for sidewalks and things like that. I jokingly was going to ask about the train theme. I don't know if that is paying homage to the old Coligny train station of past, or how that became. I'd be curious to hear how that theme ties into that and how that affects the design decisions. And my other question was there any consideration given to any outdoor seating, perhaps in that little area there that faces Lagoon Road? Again, back to the whole pedestrian comment and the fact that the people that are going to be probably parking nearby, maybe checking out the new park, walking to the beach, taking all that stuff in, I would think that there would be some merit for some outdoor seating, and how that would factor into it. Thank you.
The outdoor seating is, I don't think we have enough parking for outdoor seating, unless we get some kind of variance for having the park next door and parking lots next door. But as far as that goes, I don't believe we're trying to get the landscape and the pedestrian thing going better than the traffic, for lack of better words, for the seating outside. If there's any wiggle room on putting some out there, I'm sure my client would like to, but at this time, we don't have any plans for outdoor seating. And the other question, I don't know what was the other question you had? I'm sorry. The trains.
About the train theme. Before you touch upon that, I wanted to ask, so just so I can understand, there's just a function of, there's so many square foot of the building, therefore there's so many parking spaces, handicapped and otherwise, that are required. And obviously, to meet that criteria, that's what you're left with. Because before, when it was set up as a gas station / convenience store, there was a different requirement. Now, as a food service, that density of parking to square footage has changed. And what you show on your plan is what it takes to accommodate all those minimum parking requirements.
Right. And parking requirements to me, and making, planning to me, is definitely, whatever that's worth, I think they're way overstated. You have to have too many. I think you should have more tables and stuff, but that's just my opinion. I have to go by whatever the code and the LMO is, but
Okay.
because, and I can talk about that forever, but I'm not going to go there. But anyway, y'all don't want to hear it. But anyway, it would be nice, to add some tables outside, but we don't have enough parking for it at this time, as far as I can tell.
And as far as the train theme, not to get off the subject, but how did we land on that?
I like the train theme. That was my client's idea, and it wouldn't hurt me if we had like a train car outside somewhere or something. But but I have no, we don't have any plans for that either. But the more trainy, the better. But you have to blend in with the environment. So we were just kind of keeping it all on the inside of the building at this time. And a little bit on the sign. We had the train on the sign, which can't be but so big.
Okay, thank you for sharing.
Thank you. We'll move on to Mr. McAllister.
All right. Thank you. I think it's great to see some development on the site. This is such a high profile location. It's nice to see some new life and development come in. I have just a couple of comments. While we're kind of talking about parking, and I appreciate Mr. Molesky's comment about some outdoor seating, but also understand your challenges with outdoor seating as more parking requirements. Unfortunately, I'm about to throw a comment that might push us in the wrong direction a little bit. Chris, can you pull up the site plan real quick? So I notice you have one existing handicap space, and then we're adding 2 more. And just throwing it out there, I mean, it's not really a DRB thing, but I think it will affect your site plan when you go to DPR and they do the technical review of the plan. You're really going to need I believe you're going to need the striped loading zone adjacent to each of the handicap spaces. If it's a van accessible, I think the code says it's got to be like 8 feet. And then if it's a standard ADA space, it's got to be a 5-foot striping. So I think that's going to affect your parking count and potentially a little bit of your site layout. To me, that's not necessarily a DRB concern, but I think you'll probably run into that when you get into the development plan review. So just something to think about. So you could potentially lose a space to make up those loading spots. As far as the landscape, I really don't have any huge issues with it. I think it looks good. I think you've done a good job. I like the comment about upsizing the tree to 4-inch caliper. Again, I think that'll give you even that much more clear space between for sight lines. And I think the landscape's well done. I agree with staff's assessment on the bench. I think a good recommendation that Judd threw out was just to, if you're going to match the bench at the park, just go ahead and try to pull that spec and go ahead and match it. I think that would really tie everything together and give it a nice cohesive streetscape feel. To me, I think you've done a good job kind of making it pedestrian oriented. We all know how much foot traffic comes through Coligny. I think having that little node there on the corner of Lagoon and Pope Avenue, I think that's a good little spot for people who are moving through or coming in or out of the site. I think I can see that being used. I would also say, just going back to furnishings, with your bike rack, whatever the bench ends up being, maybe match the color of the bike rack. I think for the bike rack, I think it was the cut sheet we saw was like maybe just a raw galvanized look. So I would say if the bench is bronze or whatever, just match what your spec is, just to give it all a cohesive streetscape feel. Other than that, those are really my only comments. I think it's a nice project and looking forward to seeing it move along.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I would like to thank Snell and Associates for doing the landscape. I don't want to sit here and take the landscape architect's, praise. So anyway, they did a good job in working with the town. Mike Sherry and others. So anyway, I'd just like to give him a plug at this time. If there's any praise to be had, it'd be for him.
Thank you. We'll move on to Ms. Lipper.
Thank you. I agree this is going to be a great improvement for this lot. I'm really pleased to see the site plan revisions. I do have a couple of questions that'll help me better understand all the renovation scope. Is anything planned for the west elevation, or is that remaining the stucco as is?
No, we're going to definitely go around the 3 sides of the building with the slippy B, so it all looks the same. And the west elevation is going to have the same parapet. It's just not going to have a sign. It's going to be the same design. Look exactly the same as the other without the sign. Did we not draw that?
Maybe I missed it, but I think I only saw 3 elevations. I could have forgotten to print it out.
I'm sorry. I would imagine we'd paint the back side of the building to match the color of the siding. I wasn't planning on putting TV back there necessarily.
Okay, sorry, I'm a little unclear. So it's going to remain stucco but get painted to match the stain on the pressure treated wood?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. But okay. What is happening in the soffit condition of the sort of parapet roof that has the overhang?
I think we have smooth hardy board on here. It should have smooth hardy board. Thinking, I don't see another detail there.
Hardy panel, and what color will that be?
That's a good question. Huh? Excuse me.
And I mean, I guess I'd like to know more information about, are we doing hardy panel with trim? Is it more of a sort of tongue and groove ceiling, or?
I was thinking we would smooth hardy and match the trim color.
I'm sorry, you're cutting in and out and every once in a while, at least on my end, I didn't totally catch that.
Smooth hardy panels and match the trim color and have little battens every 8 feet. 1 by 2.
So the trim is that the very dark color. Let's see, the trim is the cyberspace.
Right. I was trying to make I wanted to make it go away so you couldn't see the ceiling as much. That's why I was doing it the darker trim color.
Okay. And is there any lighting in those soffits?
Yes, right. We have lighting in the soffit. Where's the lighting plan? I think we do.
Okay, so we would need to see those light fixtures, and I know Mr. Carson had already mentioned that we need a lighting plan. I will admit that right now I'm still trying to imagine the entire soffit in that dark trim. I hear what you're saying, that you're wanting it to go away. I'm not sure that dark a soffit will make it go away. Okay, and there's a fair amount of surface-mounted conduit and various elements. Will all of those be removed from the facade?
Yes.
Okay, so no surface-mounted conduit. Bear with me, please, as I sort of write some notes down, like cut sheets to be submitted. On the north elevation, what is the color of the door?
right here. It should be the same color as the siding. I'm not sure why we didn't color it the same color as the siding. That we don't want it to stand out.
Okay, siding color. I think that's a good call. Siding color. The lights that are proposed to light up the signage, to me, those really need to stay below the parapet elevation. I think they feel like an add-on. I mean, that may impact that you want to go to a more linear fixture or something, but I don't think that they should be mounted on top of the parapet. They really don't work with the massing of the building at that location. This one I understand, and Chris can certainly chime in and tell me I'm reaching beyond what we can discuss, but I am seeing counter height seating right behind the existing windows to remain. Will the entirety of that counter be below the existing windowsill height?
I know what you're saying. I'm have to look at it. It would probably not be, because it wouldn't be high enough. The windows are lower, so no, we wouldn't. It would not. It would be higher than in the window.
That's what I'm saying. I know this is out of DRB purview since it's inside the building. I can only comment and appeal to you to really detail that carefully. I think we have all seen unfinished counter backsplashes that come beyond a windowsill height, and it just looks unfinished. So again, I know I can't really put that in as a comment, but I would strongly encourage you to really detail that nicely. So that is your front door. I'm sure your client wants it detailed very nicely anyway.
Yeah, we are not showing any lights in the soffit. We're just showing the exterior lights on the sign at this time. I thought we had some in there, but we don't. So I apologize for that comment. I think the site's well lit outside. Definitely have to look at it, make sure it is, so people, won't be dark. But I think it's well lit in that area. But check.
Okay. I agree with my fellow board member about it would be nice if some planters potentially activate the south elevation. I also completely agree with the other staff, the other board members about the bench. Staff also had that comment. And just double check that. That concludes my comments.
Thank you, Annette. The first thing that I saw when I looked at this project were those gooseneck lights on the roof. It really, really bothers me. I think they have to come down below for sure. I agree with upgrading the live oaks to 4-inch diameter. I would like
Kathy,
to. Yes.
Kathy, can I interrupt for just a minute?
Please.
Jeff, we're getting a lot of feedback from you. Do you have another device on in the background?
I've got cell phones on. That's it. Should I cut them off?
I mean, are they on the meeting? Are they in on the meeting?
No, they're not on the call or on the meeting. They're not in the meeting. I mean, we don't have anything on Facebook, whatever.
Okay. We're just getting a lot of feedback, so I needed to ask.
Yeah.
Does that help any?
Sorry, Kathy. Thank you.
Are you getting feedback like when I talk?
No.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
All right.
I just took the charger off. I just took the charger off the laptop, so maybe that'll help. I don't know. That's the only thing I could think of.
You sound better right now, so maybe it
I
did.
took the charger out. Okay. Sorry.
It's all right. I I don't know what the benches across the street look like, but I'd really like to see a more modern bench. And I agree that the bike racks and the benches need to be of the same color, preferably a bronze. And we have to remember that when you bring your lights down to the surface of that roof, we'll call it, that we can't see any conduit. And I'm glad the color of the side door is going to match the siding on the south. And I think that's all I've got. Does anyone else on the board have additional comments?
I agree with you and Ms. Lippert on the lighting that's above the parapet. I'd like to see that come down. I think that's a good point. I agree with that.
Thank you.
And I'll also submit that I don't believe that there is any parking lot site lighting associated with the structure as existing. So that's a good pickup, that we're going to have a site lighting plan for this.
Oh, Chris, to Mr. McAllister's point, if this goes in front of the DPR and they lose a parking space due to the handicap space and it changes the landscaping, will that have to bring it back to us for approval?
It depends on the extent to which the site plan is changed. The hope was that access sidewalk could also double as the loading area shared by those two handicap spots.
Okay, thank you.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I thought.
All right, does anyone else have anything further?
And I
was going to mention so just so we're all on the same page, I'm sorry, is it the west elevation that's going to remain existing, or is that, how did that get rectified? I know Ms. Lippert brought it up, but that was kind of a big deal. And can we just mention that again? Is it going to get the same siding, or?
I just want to paint it the same color because nobody can see it. It's like 5 foot from the property line. I mean, I think it'd be fine the same color as the outside of the building. I don't know how close it is. I mean, you'd have to walk around the building to look at it. And in review boards of past, I never had to address anything you couldn't see from the street. But I will address it for the same color so to look right, okay? But just because it's just hard to see. I mean, landscaping on the right side, you can't see it from Lagoon. You have to go in the bike shop and go around. That's kind of a private area that kind of parks stuff back there, for the bike shop. I just didn't see it necessary.
Potentially another building gets demoed and then maybe it is more visible.
Yeah, the design guidelines we're trying to essentially interpret and enforce to pretty clearly state that all 4 sides of the building should be treated equally. So for that reason, I think personally it needs to match the same siding. That's my take.
I think David and John both brought up good points. We do require all the sides of the building to work together. And it is possible that the area building next door to that could get demolished. So that's a very good point brought up by the 3 of you.
Okay, we'd be willing to do that. My client has rented the building and where he's on go trying to start a business. So we can't just keep going. So we need to try to do what we can to get the building open. So we'll be happy to do whatever to get it moving.
Thank you.
We'll be happy to put siding back there to match the front and the sides. And what I need to put, well, I'll put the pilasters on there too, just like the rest of the building. So it looks exactly the same as the rest of the building, of course.
Thank you. Anyone else? May I have a motion on the application?
Can I just get a sense from the rest of the board about the dark trim soffit color, how the others are feeling about that?
It doesn't bother me. That's-
It doesn't really bother me much. I think doing it in the same color as the roof would also be very acceptable.
I think I'm okay with it as well.
Yeah, I'm fine with it, and I think in that you requested that soffit or there's a reflected ceiling plan associated with that area in case there's any lighting associated with it, but I'm fine with the dark color.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. May I have a motion on the application?
I'll take a crack at it. I may need an assist, but see. I'll make a motion regarding Crave Station DRB 002-092-2021 for approval with the following conditions. Upsize the live oak to 4-inch caliper trees. Add wheel stops where the parking abuts the sidewalk. Match the bench spec at Coligny Park. The bike rack color should also match the bench. The west elevation should match the rest of the building in finish and material. Provide any, sorry, we're not doing soffit lights, correct? I believe I can strike that comment. The door should be the same color as the siding. Keep the gooseneck lights below the top of the parapet, and any new light fixture cut sheet should be reviewed and approved by staff. And consider adding planters to the south elevation. Mr. Bassett may need to help me with that comment. And I believe that's all I have for my motion.
David, if you could add wheel stops on the pedestrian side of the parking lots.
I think I covered that.
Okay. And then the gooseneck lights need to come down off the roof.
Yes. The gooseneck light. Yeah.
That, David, I think you picked that up as well in your list. I was writing as you went.
Okay. Then Chris, because you can see the countertops inside the restaurant from the outside, does that come under our jurisdiction?
Yes, ma'am. Anything that's visible from the outside. So the back of the counters would be visible from the outside. So that could be addressed by you all, yes.
If you could add that, David.
Would somebody who's more articulate than me like to amend my motion?
I guess
I would be happy to amend it, but not with the terms of being more articulate. That's the, that's not when I'll take it.
I'm not sure how I would word that to address it properly.
So I will make, I would like to further amend the current motion that the counters behind the existing windows of the east elevation have a finished surface facing the window. I'd like to further amend the motion that no surface mounted conduit be on the renovated facades. And that the soffit material will be hardy panel and trim in the in the cyberspace color. And that a lighting plan needs to be submitted for staff review. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Karstens. And thank you to the applicant for hearing before us. Teresa, can you please take a call? Did we lose Teresa?
Nope, we have her on the line. Teresa, are you there? Okay, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I'll do the roll call.
I think you're more than capable. Thank you.
Thank you. Annette Leopard,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Molesky,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Karstens,
Yes.
Mr. Bassett,
Yes.
Ms. Foss.
Yes,
Motion carries unanimously.
thank you.
Thank y'all very much. I appreciate your time and effort.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now move on to Hudson Commercial Building DRB 002232-2021. Again, this is a alteration addition project. Chris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You're correct. It is an alteration addition. And to that point, it's not coming back. This is a one and done. It's not coming back for a final. So this project partially demolishes the commercial building on the property and constructs a new front elevation for that structure. The project is part of a number of improvements to the site to maintain conformance with the property's restrictive covenants. The new face of the commercial building is designed to reinforce the working waterfront experience of the greater site. So I would just remind you all that this is the same site that we last time looked at the conceptual for the restaurant, waterfront restaurant, and previously approved a final for a seafood market. This concept uses the existing materials while creating visual interest consistent with the rest of the property. The pair of large barn doors provide a focal point reminiscent of a waterfront boat repair shop. A canopy roof overhead is consistent with those proposed for the new market and restaurant buildings that I just mentioned. Staff recommends approval as submitted. The site, again, is outlined in red. You can see running diagonally Squire Pope Road. I believe that's Bermuda Square. I'm sorry, a little just to the north of it, above it, and further on down off the page, upper right is the circle there at the end of Gumtree and Squire Pope. This is the building that will be demolished. It's that first portion, first part of the building. And this is the back end. So this will be the end adjacent to the new fish market. Looking at it from the adjacent property. It's in a relatively residential area, so there's some mobile homes that are neighbors and some stick-built houses. This is the boat ramp that's on the property. So the building, the new waterfront restaurant would be to your left. That's the site of the waterfront restaurant set behind those trees. This is the proposed color board. You can see the new barn doors there on that elevation. So this is I thought this was a good one because it illustrates what part of the building will be removed and what will remain and what will be taking the place of that in where that building was. So this is the overall site plan. Again, the waterfront restaurant will be sitting here. This is that boat ramp dock that we looked at earlier. This is the fish location of the new fish market, seafood market. And this is the site that we're talking about now, with Squire Pope being down here off to the right. This is the area that will be affected of the site for this project. Again, the portion of the building to remain, that portion to be removed. Roof plan and front elevation. Detail of the barn doors and the wall construction sections. Proposed light fixtures. Proposed color of fixtures. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Chris. Is the applicant available?
Yes, Joe DePaul, architect for the project. And I believe Barbara Hudson, the owner, is on here as well. Thank you, Chris. I think that was a good summary of the project. We really set out to minimize the complexity of the project, but still work with the existing construction, and using new authentic details to create that new face of the building, new elevation that works with the operations of the rest of the site, and kind of is the theming that kind of sets the scene as you enter in, and you've got the restaurant behind it and the market to the side. The barn doors that we're proposing are over a blank piece of wall, but they really help to take up the space on the elevation, and they will be authentically thick barn doors on a track, fixed in place, but they could slide if you wanted to, kind of thing. So using authentic materials there, and then creating a color palette consistent with the rest of the site and also with the colors existing on the building. Chris had I think there was a staff comment about the street buffer plantings coordinating with the restaurant development. I've spoken with Pat Rooney, who's our landscape architect on this project and the restaurant project, and he assured me that those buffers will work together as you get the submittal for the restaurant, that will all be a unified streetscape.
Thank you. If there's nothing further, we'll go on to board comments and questions. We'll start with Ms. Lippert.
Thank you. I had a couple of questions. Is the new roof pitch steeper than the existing roof pitch?
We are not doing anything to the roofs besides removing the front portion. So the roof remains.
Okay. I didn't catch that. You're hearing me hesitate because based on the plan, I couldn't quite get the left elevation to jive with what the roof plan and footprint are doing. Okay, so but the roof is getting replaced, the actual roofing material?
No, we would like to try to use the existing roof, the existing shingles, and patch as needed with what we can call from the half of the building that we're demolishing.
I see. So I misunderstood the color board then. The roof canopy is...
The roof canopy is over the front door there on the right side of that front elevation. So it's just a little
Okay,
metal
yeah.
roof canopy that is an element that we've used on both the restaurant and the seafood market.
Yeah, I had just misunderstood that that whole roof was going, much like the other two buildings, to a standing seam in that galvanized. That's where my question, I just couldn't totally wrap my head around all of the project scope based on some of these items that I was just misinterpreting. Okay, so sorry, bear with me as you do say existing asphalt shingles to remain. I missed that.
So Chris, if you could pull up the picture of the front side of the building again. Might be able to clarify the scope of the project.
A picture or the elevation?
The picture of what's existing. That one is great. So you see the right side. This is the right side of the building along the drive aisle going in. There's 3 gables, entry porches to the 3 different suites. From the middle gable, the center of the middle gable towards the front, towards where we're taking a picture, that is all getting demolished. That gable will be removed and the roof replaced in that area, and then we're just providing a new front elevation on the building.
Okay. And I see that you're looking to add the service yard with the meter on this elevation, and I believe it is not, it just seems like you're I realize it's not the elevation facing the street, but in this 3-building complex, it feels like a very prominent elevation. Ideally, to me, that service yard would not be on the right elevation. It would either be on the, what is the back elevation, or in order to not be part of that prominent elevation.
Sure. So the side elevation is on the property line. We don't want to place it there. And the back elevation is the current tenant's space. Right now, the meter is on that side elevation. In that photo, it happens to be behind a column, but it's right there in your face, uncovered. And the 2 panels are right on that side wall. So we just like to shift it down the wall a little bit so we don't have to move utilities in the ground. And the running of the electrical inside the building is simple. And we're going to cover it with a nice, simply detailed service yard that just blends into that wall and goes away. But we're really just taking that meter and moving it down the wall and then covering it so it's not exposed like it is right now.
Do you feel like you're going to be able to get a true color match on the asphalt shingles, being that these have already weathered in the area where you're removing the gabled entry element?
Yes, I think there's opportunity to carefully remove some of what's there and get some that we can use to replace and clean up that edge. It's not a big area of roof that we're working with, and if it becomes an issue, we'll come back to the board with a new roof color. But at this time, we don't want to plan on re-roofing the entire building.
Okay. And sorry that you need to remind me on one more thing. The analytical gray Sherwin-Williams 7051, is that a color that is being picked up by the other 2 buildings?
It is not, it is a color currently on the building, and the paint's relatively new, so we don't want to repaint the whole building. But we do have a gray color palette on the restaurant, and it's not the exact same color, but it's very similar. And I believe there's enough distance between the two buildings. You're not, it's not going to be an issue.
Okay. Well, thank you for all those elaborations. I'm curious to see, now that I have a better understanding about what's demo, what's new, I had read the elevations as much more new work happening. Curious to hear what the other board members are going to say, but thank you for all those elaborations. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Mr. McAllister.
Thank you. Thanks, Annette, for asking some of those questions. I think that helped me understand it a little more. Overall, I think it's a nice project. I think y'all have done a good job kind of making this whole property and all this new development feel cohesive and like it was planned. So I appreciate that. I think architecturally, I think it all looks nice. I think your site landscaping and site layout, parking, I think everything's fine. I really don't have any comments to add. I think Ms. Lippert brought up one point that kind of jumped out at me, and that is matching the roof shingles. I think that's important, and I'm sure you guys don't want, to look, shingles, new shingles and old shingles that are visually different. So I would definitely like to see it, some sort of verification that it's going to match. But otherwise, I think it all looks great. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Molesky.
Yeah, same thing. Hey, Joe, I love that front elevation. It's going to look great driving down the street. And I think it's a great introduction to the whole fact that you kind of master planned everything. I really have nothing to add. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Karstens.
Yes, thank you. It's the more we dive into this area, the more I'm intrigued as far as the evolution of things. That being said, I looked back at the seafood market and kind of how the frontage of that building was addressed and how the frontage of this building is being addressed. And I guess if I had the sense that we're going to be doing this much in this area, I might have leaned on a few more things when it came to the market. So that being said, considering this is on a minor arterial, I'm going to request that the parking lot live oaks, the 4 oaks and the parking lot and the 2 on the frontage be upsized to 4-inch live oaks. Within the spec, it's the 10-foot minimum. So I'm guessing that those are probably 2 to 2.5-inch caliper oaks. I think that's fine for the 3 that are on that southwest frontage, but the 4 associated with the parking lot and the 2 up front, I feel like those are going to need to be a little bit more, considering that there's not much else along this frontage and that it really is becoming the front door for quite a larger complex. In addition, on the planting plan, again, it's kind of, this drive ends becoming more of a street. So I feel like some of the plant material that's on that frontage, namely the podocarpus and the philodendron, I feel like they want to match up with what's at the market a little better, which means that the podocarpus is fine, but I think the philodendron, I think we need something a little more robust or an evergreen. I'm also afraid of the philodendron getting too big for that space. So I'd request that either looking back at the seafood market, there's the potential, I see some camellia, maybe not the fatsia, but I'd request that if Pat could provide us another alternative there on adjacent to those entry points. And then I know, Joe, when the future comes and the site plan and the planting plan come before us for the restaurant, I'd like to see kind of that fill in the rest of the gaps when it comes to this whole area. The gap between this repair shop and down to the market, and then obviously across this entry lane. just so it is a complete picture, at least even if I know there's an access into repair yards, even if just the whole frontage can be addressed and we can feel good about the whole package. But I like Annette's comments and David's comments as far as just making sure the roofs are consistent. I think it's a great facade that's going to be on Squire Pope. It's really interesting. I look forward to, obviously, like I said, the filling out of the whole project. But if we can upsize those oaks and swap out the philodendron for something else, to help kind of strengthen that facade and kind of get it in line with the market, I'd appreciate it. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Bassett.
Yes, I too really like the direction of this and what's happening in the area. I can, understand the desire to do a lighter refresh of this building and what's existing, but with that, definitely need to make sure that those shingles are matched up appropriately, and hopefully you'll be able to pull from the rest of the building and piece those in. But if not, would definitely want to see a consistent roofing structure when it's completed and, consistent in color. I agree with Mr. Karstens on the upsizing of those oaks and his comments on the landscaping, and otherwise I'm good with it. Happy about the project.
Thank you. I too appreciate the change and the way this project is moving. And I really feel like the buildings don't need to match as far as color and even all of the landscaping, just because they're going to be 3 different businesses and they all need to have sort of their own identity. But I'll let everyone talk to that. I think there's enough roof that's coming down that they will be able to patch that in pretty easily, but I really believe the architect will be able to make that happen. If not, he'll change it and bring it back to us, as he said. Yeah, let's upsize the oaks to 4 inches and that's all I've got. Does anyone else have additional comments or questions?
Kathy, I'll just say, yes, I'm in favor of the buildings having their own character, but when it comes to that entry streetscape, we're gonna want some consistency, at least, especially from Squire Pope into where people start to diverge into the restaurant and to diverge into some of these other things. So I think it's okay that if the treatment in front of what we're dealing with right now is matched across the drive aisle, and then it could make a transition once you get close to the market, like say past the turns off for the restaurant, I think that's okay. But again, we've just been seeing these components, and I'm looking forward to the restaurant finishing things out and kind of bringing it all to a head. So,
Good comment. I agree. Anyone else? May I have a motion on the application?
I'll make a motion, and obviously I'll look if anybody has any addendums as architecturally, but I will make a movement. The motion to approve alteration addition for Hudson Commercial Building DRB 002232-2021 with the following amendments to upsize the 6 live oaks, 4 in the parking area and 2 on the Squire Pope road frontage to 4-inch caliper trees, to exchange the split leaf philodendron for another evergreen shrub, the 3 philodendron. And I believe that was it. If anybody has any additional amendments, I'd welcome them.
If not,
I'll chime in with a amendment to that motion, that it be verified that the shingle infill match the existing roof shingles in color. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Can we get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Teresa, can you please call the roll?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My apologies. I was having audio issues earlier. Okay, Ms. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Molesky,
Yes.
Mr. Karstens,
Yes.
Mr. Bassett,
Yes.
Ms. Fox.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. And thank you to the applicant.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. All right, we're going to move on to board business. Does anyone on the board have anything to bring up? I would like to bring up, and I'm not like naming names, but it's important that we show up, especially on these Zoom meetings, a little bit earlier before the meeting starts, because we are trying to start the meeting directly on time because we have people from the public, the applications, and sometimes citizens, and the meeting is supposed to start directly on time. So if you could show up, and we've experienced people having Zoom issues that get fixed before the meeting starts. So if you could show up at least 10 minutes early, if not 15, that would be great. Anyone else? All right, staff, do we have a minor quarter report?
We do not at this time.
Perfect. With no other business before the board, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, everyone.